Greetings, everyone. You are now tuned in to our podcast. Let's first introduce ourselves. I am Sean Eduardo
I
Faren.
am Charlyn Parafina.
I'm Lyca Reyes.
I am Shainelyn Inocencio.
I am Arannah Andrea Romanes.
And I am Andrea and Tayab.
Once again, welcome to WePlay. For today's episode, we will be talking about the second voyage of Sinbad the Sailor, a literary review. But before we actually proceed, please give our listeners some background about what and where Sinbad came from.
The Thousand and One Nights is a collection of mostly Middle Eastern and Indian folktales of unknown source and period. And of course, among its tales is the protagonist of our today's episode, which is Sinbad the Sailor.
Based on what I have read, the adventures of Sinbad were based on merchants from Iraq trading with the East Indies and China. The stories have abundance of the supernatural, exaggerating the perils encountered.
Yes, because the journey of Sinbad is about a merchant or trader who encountered many types of adventure while confronting enormous birds, sea monsters, snakes, and other imaginary creatures that pique the curiosity of the children.
Speaking of which, the story of the journey of Sinbad has been preserved through oral inheritance. This imaginative and compelling fiction has inspired many adaptations to be born. After all, the combined themes of adventure, fantasy, sailing on the open seas, and the journey to riches are simply a very fascinating mix for any adventure-loving reader.
That's right. Adventure and fantasy fiction have always been a very popular genre, whether it's in the past or not.
I couldn't agree more with you. Many have gained interest in these kinds of stories to escape the chaotic life we all live in, especially with the pandemic right outside our doors. People all over the world now see folklore as mediums to create even more fantastic and out-of-this-world stories, just to distract our mind from the cruel reality. What do you think, Lyca?
In fact, other than adventure and fantasy, I think the second voyage of Sinbad also reflect their religion and faith in Allah, since Sinbad has often mentioned and glorified Allah whenever he is in need of help or when he is grateful.
You all have a point. Moving on, let's now talk about the plot. As we all know, the story revolves around Sinbad's adventures after he was left behind by the ship. Which part or conflict in the story impressed you the most?
For me, the most distressing part was when Sinbad dozed off and was left by his companions. If only he was awake at that time, he would not be left behind since it was the start of his extraordinary experience. How about you, Charlyn?
As for me, one of the striking parts in the tale was when Sinbad was trapped in a cave full of gems. He felt hopeless at that time, but when he heard the flap of the wings of the giant bird, he took the chance to get out. He used the meat to lure the giant bird so that he could tie himself and escape. A very brave and intelligent way of resolving a problem. What do you think, Sean?
Personally, the part where my attention was caught is when he went back home. As from that part, Sinbad realized that no amount of treasure would be able to replace the family he had, as he finally made up his mind and permanently stayed with them in order to create happy memories for the rest of his life.
Oh wow! Sinbad sure had a lot of things to deal with. It's good thing he managed to resolve all those conflicts in the end. It must have led him to learn some lessons along the journey, right?
Exactly! Sinbad should have really learned his lesson this time.
Couldn't agree more. Well, regardless of whether Sinbad learned his lesson or not, we sure learned some valuable lesson in his place. Why don't we share some lessons that we learned from the story?
For me, it's how Sinbad looks at life, like everything in it was all part of one big adventure. He taught me that no matter what setbacks we face, we can always find solutions as long as we have faith and never give up.
Well, that was a nice insight. In my case, the most defining moment was when Sinbad overcame and defied the odds in his journey. I have learned that there will always be challenges that a person may encounter along the way, and to overcome it, we must make the best out of the situation. How about you, Sean? Which part of the story left a great impression on you?
The part of the story that taught me a lesson is the multiple times that he was in mortal peril, which made me remember the saying, If there is a will, there is a way. As long as one perceives any difficult situation as a hurdle that needs to be overcome by oneself, all will be fine. As long as you think fast and think smart.
Wow, we sure did learn a lot from Second Voyage of Sinbad. To everyone who's listening to this, we highly recommend that you read the story Sinbad as well. This piece of literature is sure to catch your interest. You'll even get to learn some in great life lessons too.
And this ends today's episode. Thank you everyone for listening to our literature review. This has really been a wonderful experience for us. If you like today's episode, follow us and check out our channel for more. This is WePlay Podcast, signing out.